Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
For M&M in particular, the management pegs the industry growth to be 12 to 14% in this year, in FY19 that is. Pawan Goenka, the MD of M&M, joins us now to talk about that. Dr. Goenka, good morning and thank you for joining us on the show. You have raised the tractor industry growth guidance for this year to 12 to 14%. But tell us, what about FY20? Is there scope for high teens growth there as well? And what stage of the tractor upcycle are we in right now?
Well, I wish I could predict that far ahead. It's very difficult to say what will happen in FY20. As you know, it depends on so many factors, monsoon, of course, being one of them, and it depends on overall GDP growth, depends on MSPs, and therefore cannot say what will happen in FY20. But this is the we are on the third year of very good growth, and tractor industry is cyclic, as we all know. But then we have had 3 good years of monsoon. That doesn't happen very often either. So it will depend on many factors. But right now we are feeling good about what's happening this year. The growth has been much more than what we had expected, any of us had expected, and therefore everything is going well.
Dr. Goenka, good morning and thank you very much for joining us this morning. A cheaper rupee, good for you?
Well, we are basically even in export and import, because we do export our vehicles and tractors, but we do have some import of components. So in terms of overall impact on our P&L, it doesn't make a huge difference on what happens to rupee, but generally I would say the current level is what I would like to see, maybe a little bit lower, 68, 69, not 70, but that's what I would like to see, but it's not a very big impact.
Okay. Mr. Mahindra tweeted in favor of the weakening rupee, saying that it's a big boost to make in India, which is why I asked.
Okay. Well,
generally it is. Generally it is. I'm not talking of India as a whole. I was just talking of Mahindra and Mahindra.
Sure. Is there scope to improve margins further in the tractor business? I mean, I was just mapping the margins over the last, 10, 15 quarters. It's been very steady. Now it's sitting at almost a high of 21%. Do you think there are any more margin levers?
Well, it again depends on many factors. If the volumes keep growing, that is always good for margins, because the fixed costs get spread over a much larger volume. And since we have seen good volume growth in the last 4 or 5 quarters in a row, we have seen a very good margin increase. But having said that, as you pointed out, that the margin that we have right now is a very good margin, and it will be difficult to do much better than that. But we keep trying, we keep reducing costs, we keep making our operations more efficient, increase productivity, and hope that we will at least stay where we are, if not go up.
Okay. Well, now let me come to the UV segment. You had said at the conference call that you're going to revise the volume guidance higher if August and September go well. Now we are about half into August. What are the early signs?
Well, first half of the month gives no signs. Everything happens in the last 2 or 3 or 4 days, and therefore 16th, 17th August is as good as beginning of the month. Very hard to say, because last year June and July were very unusual months because of GST coming in those months, and therefore very difficult to read anything into very good growth that we have had so far. The 22% growth for the industry overall, all 4-wheelers together, is perhaps one of the highest that we have seen in many years. And therefore, all signs are towards higher guidance. But as I said earlier, that I'd like to wait till August and maybe even perhaps September to see whether the kind of numbers that we see today will be sustained through the year.
Okay, so all signs are pointing towards higher guidance. We'll try and touch base with you once again in October to find out. 50% of your auto sales comes from the medium heavy commercial vehicle and the LCV segment. You have indicated that the confusion around the axle load norms could impact the MHCV sales, at least in the month of August. But that's not the feeling we got from the likes of Ashok Leyland. In fact, Leyland raised the commercial vehicle growth guidance for the industry from 10 to 15%, stating that there is a massive infrastructure pickup. Would you concur with that view, and would you also raise guidance for the CV segment?
So let's separate it out into 2 parts. One is, if I leave axle capacity out, Certainly, there is a very good demand pull that's happening. And even before the announcement of axle capacity, the growth has been extremely good for the industry. And I think it's fair to say that on that basis, the industry should see a larger growth than what we had anticipated at the beginning of the year. So 15% will be a reasonable number to say. Having said that, the axle capacity, when it was announced, it created a sort of lot of uncertainty, and therefore month of July was very badly affected. Things have settled down now in the last 4 or 5 days with some clarifications coming from the government of India, and therefore we expect that July, August will get back to the normal growth that we're anticipating without axle capacity. It's difficult to see whether it will bring down the overall demand by 2%, 3% of what would have been, but I won't disagree with the potential of 15% as being the guidance for this year.
That's good to hear. Mr. Goenka, what are you planned in terms of launches, timetables as well? In the UV
Well, we
segment?
have a fairly busy launch season coming up in UV segment and also in commercial vehicle segment. In UV, we have the launch of Marazzo just around the corner, which should happen before the end of September, as we had said earlier. And after that, we have one more UV launch happening before the festive season and one after the festive season. The two that are coming after Marazzo are S201, which is the sub-4 meter vehicle, and the G4 Rexton, which is coming from SsangYong. So these are the two major launches, plus the Marazzo launch, 3. And then we have the Furio, which is the ICV, and that we are launching, which completes the commercial vehicle offering for Mahindra. And therefore, with these 4 launches happening in the auto sector for the remainder of this year, it's going to be a pretty busy season.
So what kind of market share recovery are you attempting, Dr. Goenka? Because, you know, if you look at it from over the last 4 years, the market share in the utility vehicle segment is now at a multi-year low, standing at just about 25% odd. I mean, you used to enjoy 50% at one point in time. Can you give us any guidance on what the market share pickup could be over the next 1 to 2 years?
Well, I would not want to comment on market share, but what I would say is the 3 vehicles that we are launching, that is Marazzo, S201 and G4 Rexton, together should give us volume in the range of 8 to 10,000 vehicles per month minimum. And if we get 8 to 10,000 vehicles from these 3 products, that would mean a growth of about 40% on our annuals or monthly sales that we have had in the last 2, 3, 4 years. This is assuming that we have no cannibalization, and these 3 products are very different from what we have today, and therefore I don't expect much cannibalization. So that's the kind of volume growth that we are seeing. Now, market share growth will depend on how others do, and therefore, and how the industry does, and therefore I would not be able to predict a market share growth. But clearly, if we get a 40% growth in volume, that will lead to a fairly healthy market share growth. Oh,
you are bullish. Dr. Goenka, a final question to you. This is election season and you've seen many cycles in the past. You're the king of SUVs and tractors. Typically, during such times, do you see more demand, more than usual demand, and you have a string of elections?
Well, yes, normally it is slightly positive to positive, certainly not negative during the actual election season. And therefore, we would start seeing some pickup. And this happens more in our vehicles like Bolero and Scorpio, and less in vehicles like, say XUV or KUV. Because the off-road vehicle, which carry a lot of people, are the ones that are in demand during election season. So we would look to see some uptick in those markets, and that adds to my bullishness that you just talked about.
Okay. So then, just before we let you go, a broader guideline over the next few years. I mean, you know, if you look at the last decade, the automotive volumes have grown at a compounded growth of about 11% plus. Tractor volumes have grown at a compounded growth of 11%, 11.4% to be precise. Can these growth rates be surpassed over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think let me take tractor first. Tractor, if you take any 10-year period, in the history of industry, you will see 8 to 10% growth in any 10-year period. So therefore, in tractor, I will not expect to see on an average long-term basis more than 8 to 10. But I won't expect to see lower either, because there are many who believe that the tractor industry is saturated. That is not true. We still have room to grow for at least doubling the volume over the next, let's say, 7 to 10 years. When it comes to automotive, I think it's going to be a fairly interesting journey going forward. I see pretty good demand in this financial year. I see pretty good demand in FY20. There could be some slowdown that will happen in FY21 because of BS6 norms coming in and the prices going up by 8 to 10% in almost all categories of vehicles, and also the safety norms, which will increase the prices. Therefore, after April 1st, 2000, I would see some sort of slowing down, and then it should pick up again because the inherent demand for automotive products, both in the personal segment as well as commercial segment, still is very high. India still has a very low population of cars, and therefore, fundamentally, I won't see it to slow down. But again, on a long-term basis, to be more than 10 to 12% is a very difficult thing to happen because cycles will always happen. There will be a slowdown. There will be some bad season that will come up, and therefore, on the long term, I would never look at more than about 12%.
Okay, so India still has very few vehicles per person. Doesn't feel like that in Bombay, does it, sir? Thank you very much.
well, you should go and see the streets of Paris and New York and Tokyo. Then you won't think that Delhi and Mumbai are so bad.
I wish I could do that. Thank you very much.